The heavy prison doors creak open, echoing down the long, empty corridors. 30 years is a lifetime, yet Rack steps through without hesitation, her posture unbroken, her eyes scanning everything as if memorizing it all in a single glance. Every step she takes is deliberate, slow, filled with purpose. A silent announcement to the world that she has returned. The air outside feels different, fresher. Yes, but heavy with memories she thought she had left behind. The streets she once ruled have moved on. Yet some things never change. The faces watching from the outside hold a mix of awe, fear, and curiosity. Some whisper her name like a prayer. Others watch in silence, wondering if the legend they heard about could still be real. She takes a moment at the edge of the prison yard, looking around, absorbing the changes. Buildings have risen where old corners once stood, unfamiliar cars line the streets. And even the people walking past carry an energy she doesn't recognize. 30 years in prison has changed her, yes, but the streets have changed more. The power she once commanded didn't disappear, it was claimed by others. Some loyal, some opportunistic, and some dangerous. Rack doesn't rush. She knows speed is not the answer. Strategy is. Patience and observation will guide her first moves. As she walks through the city's outskirts, the weight of her past life presses against her chest, a constant reminder that freedom does not erase consequences. Memories hit her in fragments. She recalls moments of triumph, the first deals she ever made, the allies who stood by her, and the enemies who plotted her downfall. But she also remembers the moment the world turned against her, when trust became betrayal and power slipped from her grasp. Yet even behind bars, she had never lost her vision. Rack had spent years planning, learning, watching, and now she is finally free to act on every move she has imagined for decades. The city may think she is old news, that her time has passed, but legends never die. They wait silently and strike when the moment is right. Her first steps outside the prison are cautious but confident. The sounds of the city sirens, honking cars, shouting voices fill her ears, a symphony of life she has been missing for 3 decades. Every person she passes is a potential threat or a potential ally. Rack doesn't need introductions. She commands attention simply by being herself. The air is charged, heavy with the promise of power's struggles to come. Those who see her know that something is shifting. Even from a distance, her presence disturbs the rhythm of the streets. She walks past the familiar spots where she once operated, noticing how time has both respected and erased her legacy. A cafe she once frequented is gone, replaced by a shiny new building. The corner store where deals were made now serves coffee and pastries. The world has moved on, but she hasn't forgotten. By the time she reaches the main streets, the sun begins to dip behind the skyline, casting long shadows that mirror the uncertainty she faces. Every corner could hide an enemy. Every glance could conceal betrayal. But Rack moves forward with unwavering focus, understanding that her first impression outside will set the tone for the battles to come. She is no longer just a woman out of prison. She is a force returning to claim her place. The streets remember her reputation, and whispers of her return begin to spread faster than she even moves. People talk, rumors ignite, and those who stayed loyal begin to stir. Allies will return, enemies will prepare, and Rack will watch, calculating, patient, waiting for the perfect moment to remind everyone why her name has always carried weight. The city has changed, but some things remain the same. As Rack steps deeper into her old neighborhood, the air grows heavier with tension. Eyes follow her from every corner, some curious, some wary, and some clearly plotting. She moves deliberately, scanning faces, noting subtle gestures, reading the unspoken messages carried in every glance. Years in prison didn't dull her instincts, they sharpened them. She remembers every alleyway, every back entrance, every street corner that once served as a chessboard for her moves. And now, walking these streets again, She realizes that while the board has changed, the rules remain. Power is never given, it's taken. And survival depends on knowing who to trust and when to strike. The first people she encounters are those who have waited loyal allies who stayed true despite decades of silence. Their faces betray relief and anxiety in equal measure. Some have aged alongside the city, carrying scars and stories of their own, while others seem frozen in time, as if they had been waiting just for her return. Rack doesn't greet them with warmth. She greets them with a measured glance, a nod, an understanding that words are secondary to presence. She lets them know, silently, that she has returned to reclaim what is hers, and that loyalty will be rewarded but betrayal will be remembered, even after 30 years. Her reputation precedes her, but not everyone is ready to welcome her back. Along the streets, she sees signs of the power vacuum that emerged during her absence. Businesses she once controlled have new owners, some bold enough to flaunt their success. Rivals who thrive while she was gone now operate openly, some daring to test her limits even before she fully reclaims her footing. Rack notes each one carefully, committing faces to memory, understanding alliances and weaknesses with the precision of a strategist. She knows the balance of power can shift in a single moment, and she intends to make every move count. This isn't just a return, it's a calculation, a silent announcement that the queen is back in play. And every action from now on will ripple across the city. The emotional weight of reuniting with family and allies hits her next. The people she loved, the ones who shaped her life before prison, greet her with a mixture of joy, uncertainty, and unspoken questions. There are hugs, but they're brief, careful, almost cautious, as if they sense the tension that surrounds her like a shield. Some of the younger generation barely remembers her, having grown up with stories rather than experiences. Their eyes reflect curiosity and fear, the duality of knowing the legend but questioning the reality. Rack watches them, quietly measuring reactions, understanding that reconnecting with family is as much strategic as it is emotional. These relationships are more than bonds, they are extensions of influence, networks that will matter in the battles to come. Yet amidst these reunions, Rack senses subtle undercurrents of betrayal and competition. Not everyone who approaches her is an ally. Some are opportunists testing the waters, gauging whether she is the same force she once was. Her time in prison has taught her patience, and she waits, observes, lets them reveal intentions without exposing her own. Every conversation, every gesture, every fleeting glance is analyzed, even in casual interactions. She notes loyalty and deceit. Her mind runs calculations faster than her words, and she begins crafting strategies in silence. Power, she knows, is a game of perception, and the perception of fear or respect can be as important as actual strength. As night falls, the city transforms under a different light. Shadows lengthen, secrets hide in alleys, and the subtle threats she has identified begin to take shape. Those loyal to her start sharing information quietly, rumors, whispers, pieces of intelligence that confirm some suspicions and introduce new puzzles. Rack listens, nods, and remembers that her return is only the first step. Regaining control requires careful planning, patience, and the readiness to strike at the right moment. Her presence alone causes ripples. She can feel it in the cautious glances, the murmurs, the fleeting tension in the streets. She is no longer just a woman returning home. She is a force reawakening, a storm about to reclaim the empire that never truly forgot her. The city doesn't wait, and neither does opportunity. Rack moves quietly through familiar neighborhoods, observing from shadows, listening to whispered conversations, and taking mental notes on who holds power now. 30 years in prison taught her the importance of patience, but also the necessity of action when the moment is right. She doesn't rush. She studies the new players, their habits, alliances, and weaknesses, knowing that reclaiming what was once hers won't be done through brute force alone. The streets may have changed, but the game remains the same. Information is power. Perception is influence, and timing is everything. Rack begins reconnecting with her inner circle, those who stayed loyal despite the years. Meetings are held in discreet locations away from prying eyes. Words are few, gestures speak volumes. Each ally she gathers carries knowledge of the streets, of the new players, of the shifting alliances that have formed in her absence. She listens more than she speaks, allowing others to reveal what they know, while she silently evaluates the loyalty and usefulness of each person. Every nod, every hesitation, every glance is a clue, a piece of a larger puzzle that she intends to solve before making her first decisive move. Meanwhile, rivals who filled the void during her imprisonment sense the subtle shift in the air. Some act openly, testing boundaries, trying to assert dominance in areas that were once hers. Others are cautious, hiding in plain sight, observing her return, unsure if the legend is real or a shadow of memory. Rack watches. Information flows into her like water into a reservoir. Loyal allies bring reports of suspicious activity, new leaders, and potential threats. Each report is assessed and cross-referenced, and Rack begins forming a mental map of the power's structure. She once dominated. She notices cracks, vulnerabilities, and opportunities places where she can reclaim influence without immediate confrontation, and others where she must tread carefully to avoid ambushes or betrayals. Even the city itself becomes a tool. Rack understands the psychology of fear and respect, and she plans her moves so that even the mere hint of her presence will shift the balance in her favor. Tension rises as she begins to make subtle moves. A whispered conversation here, a discreet intervention there. Small actions that send ripples through her old empire. Rivals take notice, their confidence shaken by the realization that Rack is not just back, she is aware, vigilant, and ready to act. Fear becomes a weapon, and Rack wields it silently. She doesn't need to confront every opponent immediately. Perception alone can destabilize, create uncertainty, and force missteps. She is a strategist, an observer, a force that moves without being fully seen, yet whose impact is felt in every corner of the city dot as she navigates the streets. Rack also begins to recognize that power is not just about territory or money, it's about people. Allies must feel valued, loyalty must be rewarded, and enemies must be neutralized without unnecessary exposure. She starts reestablishing connections with those who can influence outcomes in her favor, leveraging old debts, mutual interests, and shared histories. At the same time, she identifies those who will resist, making mental notes of when and how to confront them. Every decision is deliberate, every move calculated, a careful dance between influence, intimidation, and strategy. Night falls, and the city's lights cast long shadows over streets that are both familiar and foreign. Rack stands on a rooftop overlooking her old empire, seeing the patterns of power, the movements of rivals, and the quiet loyalty of those still aligned with her. She begins planning the next phase, striking where the opposition is weakest, consolidating influence, and sending a message that she is no longer just a figure from the past. She is a force awakened, patient yet unstoppable, preparing to reclaim an empire that has waited decades for her return. Every whisper, every movement, every shadow is now part of her plan. The city remembers her name, and soon they will remember why it has always carried weight. The city may have changed, but danger hasn't forgotten her. As Rack makes her first decisive moves to reclaim influence, she begins to see the cracks in her strategy. Not all her old allies are ready to fall in line, and some rivals are bolder than she anticipated. Small gestures of power reclaiming, territory, quietly confronting those who overstepped bring immediate attention. Eyes that once overlooked her presence now linger with suspicion, and whispers travel faster than she can move. Every step requires precision. Miscalculation here could mean a lost opportunity or a deadly mistake. Tensions rise quickly when Rack encounters her first major opposition. A new gang leader, emboldened by her absence, refuses to acknowledge her authority. openly challenging the space she once dominated. The encounter is subtle, almost invisible to outsiders, a controlled stare in a dimly lit street. A brief conversation that feels casual but carries the weight of threats. And an unspoken acknowledgement that this is a power test. Rack doesn't overreact. She measures every word, every pause. Her experience teaches her that direct conflict now could be premature, but failure to assert dominance would be fatal. It's a delicate balance between restraint and demonstration, and she navigates it with the skill of someone who has spent decades learning the art of strategy, in both freedom and confinement. Meanwhile, the loyal few she trusts begin executing her plans quietly. Transactions are monitored, messages passed, alliances confirmed. Rack watches from a distance, observing outcomes without revealing herself. Every reaction, every hesitation, every display of loyalty or fear becomes part of her mental map. She begins identifying which allies are most valuable, which enemies are most dangerous, and where the city's power truly lies in this new era. The subtle maneuvers set in motion weeks ago now bear fruit. But they also reveal new complications alliances that shifted in her absence, grudges that festered over decades, and unexpected players who have risen quietly dot at the same time. Rack confronts the emotional weight of her return. Reunions with family and old friends are no longer just personal, they are political. The people she loves are caught between loyalty to her and their own survival instincts. Some are terrified by the consequences of her actions. Others are emboldened, inspired to reclaim lost status alongside her. Rack recognizes that her relationships are not just bonds of affection. They are tools in the complex web of power. Every decision she makes affects not only her standing, but the safety and allegiance of those she cares about. The balance between trust, loyalty, and strategy becomes more critical with each passing hour. The first skirmishes with rivals intensify when subtle provocations turn into open confrontations. One rival's bold move to encroach on her territory sparks a rapid response, not through direct violence, but through demonstration of influence. Rack ensures that the right message is sent. She is back, and underestimating her will come with a cost. She orchestrates small wins, carefully timed, each one designed to weaken opposition while solidifying her position. The city watches quietly, sensing a shift in the balance of power. Rumors spread, some exaggerated, some true, but all contributing to the aura of control she rebuilds step by step. Even as she consolidates, Rack knows the real threats are still hidden. The strongest opponents are not the ones who act openly, they are the silent watchers, the ones who wait for a misstep. The unseen players manipulating events from the shadows. She begins probing these hidden forces, planting misinformation, testing reactions, and identifying weaknesses. Every move is deliberate, every glance calculated. Trust is earned through action, not words, and Rack's approach combines patience with ruthlessness. The city itself becomes a chessboard, and every alley, building, and conversation is a piece in her strategy to reclaim the empire she built decades ago. By the end of these early confrontations, Rack has established herself, not through brute force alone, but through precision, awareness, and an unshakable presence. The city recognizes that she is no longer a legend from the past. She is an active force, moving carefully, but moving nonetheless. Allies align, rivals hesitate, and the unseen threats begin to reveal themselves through subtle reactions and miscalculations. The game of power has resumed, and Rack is once again at the center of it, patient yet unstoppable, preparing for the larger battles that will define the next phase of her return. The streets may have changed, but Rack has already begun to remind everyone why her name carries weight, and why underestimating her will be a mistake no one can afford to make. The city pulses with tension as Rack's presence begins to reshape the balance of power. Word of her return spreads through whispers, rumors, and uneasy glances across alleyways and boardrooms alike. Rivals that once felt untouchable now pause, reconsidering every move, every deal. Some attempt to challenge her openly, but they quickly realize that Rack's strategy is no longer reactive, it is proactive. She doesn't just respond to threats, she anticipates them, setting traps that others fail to see until it's too late. Every street, every corner, every conversation is a piece in a game only she fully understands. Allies who once waited in the shadows now start to step forward, emboldened by Rack's carefully orchestrated displays of influence. She rewards loyalty quietly but visibly, ensuring that those who support her understand the benefits of standing by her side. At the same time, she subtly reminds those who waver that betrayal comes with consequences. These early demonstrations of power are precise, calculated, and psychologically effective. They shake confidence, strengthen loyalty, and solidify her reputation as someone who cannot be ignored. Every move is designed to maximize influence while minimizing unnecessary risk, a lesson forged over decades of both triumph and confinement. But as she consolidates her power, new and unexpected threats arise. Young leaders who came up during her absence view her return as a challenge to their authority. Some act recklessly, hoping to provoke her into mistakes. Others operate in secrecy, attempting to undermine her with whispers, sabotage, and manipulation. Rack observes each action carefully, learning the tendencies of these new players while considering how to integrate or eliminate them. The challenge is not only to reclaim what was once hers, but to adapt to a world that has changed, a generation that never knew her rule, and a system that evolved in her absence. Every decision she makes now carries weight beyond her personal interest. It sets the tone for how the streets will perceive her strength and strategy. In addition to rivals and opportunists, the law itself looms as an obstacle. Investigators, aware of her past and reputation, begin to take note of subtle movements, suspicious patterns, and the sudden reemergence of influence in areas she once controlled. Rack navigates these threats with calculated caution. She avoids unnecessary exposure, uses intermediaries, and leverages information to manipulate outcomes without drawing attention to herself.